Have you ever wondered why sitting at your desk all day makes your lower back feel as if it's staging a rebellion? Well, I'm Eleftheria, and today we're going to talk about a group of muscles that might be just the culprit behind that nagging discomfort. The Iliopsoas complex doesn't get nearly as much attention as the biceps or abs, but trust me, after teaching massage therapy since 2004 and working with countless clients, I can tell you this muscle group deserves its moment in the spotlight. Now, the iliopsoas complex isn't just one muscle, it's actually three muscles working together like a well-coordinated team. You've got the psoas major, the psoas minor, and the iliacus. Together, they form what we call the iliopsoas complex, and they're responsible for some pretty crucial movements in our daily lives. Every time you lift your knee to climb stairs, get out of bed, or even just walk down the streets, you're using these muscles. They're the primary hip flexors, which means they bring your thigh toward your torso. Think about like kicking a ball or doing a sit-up. Yep, that's your iliopsoas complex at work. Let me get into the nitty-gritty of anatomy here, but I promise to keep it understandable. The psoas major is shaped like a spindle and it starts way up in your lower back. Specifically, it attaches to the sides and front surfaces of your first four lumbar vertebrae, which are those bones stacked up in your lower spine. It also grabs onto the last thoracic vertebra, which is right where your ribcage ends. Imagine these muscle fibers running downward alongside your spine, parallel to those vertebrae, making their way into the ball-shaped area inside your hip bone, called the iliac fossa. These bundles of the psoas major meet up with the iliacus muscle there, and together they pass underneath a ligament in your groin area, called the inguinal ligament. Finally, they attach to a small bump in your thigh bone called the lesser trochanter. Interestingly, the right psoas major is usually a little bit bigger than the left one. The psoas minor is a smaller player in this game. It sits in front of the psoas major and runs from the last thoracic vertebra to the first lumbar vertebra. Here's the thing though, not everyone has this muscle. Only about 60 to 65% of people do. When it's present, it connects with the iliac fascia and helps support the action of the iliopsoas. It attaches to a bony prominence called the iliopectineal eminence in about 90% of people who have it. The iliacus muscle is fan-shaped and starts from the upper two-thirds of the iliac fossa, which is that smooth, concave inner surface of your hip bone, plus some parts of your sacrum. Its fibers merge with the psoas major tendon, and both pass under that inguinal ligament I mentioned earlier, right in front of your hip joint before attaching to the lesser trochanter. There are even some tiny fibers called the infratrochanteric muscle that lay alongside the iliacus, giving it a broader connection to the hip bone. So, what do these muscles actually do? Their main job is hip flexion, bringing your thigh up towards your chest. But the psoas major also helps with lateral flexion of your spine, which means bending your torso sideways. When you're standing on one leg, the iliopsoas on that side helps stabilize your pelvis and lower spine. The innervation comes from the lumbar plexus, specifically branches from L1 to L4 for the psoas major and the femoral nerve of the iliacus. That means the messages your brain sends to move these muscles travel through specific nerve pathways originating from your lower spine. I remember this client I had a few years back. She came to me with chronic lower back pain that had been bothering her for years. She worked one of these typical office jobs where she'd sit for 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours a day. During our consultation, she mentioned that her pain was worse when she tried to stand up after sitting for a while or when she tried to do any kind of exercise. After assessing her, I could feel how tight and contracted her iliopsoas was. We did a Thai massage session that included specific stretches for the Iliopsoas complex, and you should have seen her face afterward. She said it was like someone had finally released a vice grip on her lower back. That's when I really understood just how much these muscles can affect someone's quality of life. Now, here's when things get really fascinating. The iliopsoas complex isn't just floating around in your body doing its own thing. It's intimately connected to your fascia, which is that web-like connective tissue that wraps around and through all your muscles and organs. Think of fascia as the body's internal architecture, like the framework of a building. The iliopsoas has fascial connections that reach all the way up to your diaphragm, which is your main breathing muscle. This means tension in your iliopsoas can actually affect how you breathe. Picture a taut rope pulling on a tent. If one section of the rope is too tight, it distorts the entire structure. The fascial connections of the iliopsoas extend to the pelvic floor, the lower back muscles, and even influence the position and function of your internal organs. When you treat the iliopsoas in massage or bodywork, you're not just working on isolated muscles, you're affecting an entire network of tissue that communicates throughout your body. It's like pulling on one thread in a sweater and watching the ripples spread across the fabric. Well, in a way, the psoas plays for the lower back a role comparable to what the scalene group provides for the cervical spine. The scalenes anchor the neck, stabilize segmental motion, fine-tuning positioning, and serve as deep guides for breath-related mechanics. The psoas carries that same architectural function through the lumbar region. It stabilizes the anterior spine, moderates shear forces, influences axial rotation, and supports both posture and locomotion. Just as the scalene shape the neck's balance between mobility and control, the psoas shapes the lower back's balance between spinal support, pelvic position, and efficient transfer of force through the trunk and legs. But what about the clinical significance of all that? It just cannot be overstated, especially when we're talking about lower back pain. Here's something most people don't realize. When you're sitting, your iliopsoas is actually contracted and working to some degree. It's not fully relaxed. So, if you're sitting for hours every day, year after year, that muscle is constantly in a shortened, contracted position. Over time, it adapts to that length and becomes tight. Then, when you stand up or try to extend your hip, that shortened muscle pulls up on your lower spine, creating compression and discomfort. This is where the story gets really interesting from an evolutionary perspective. Our distant ancestors, like the Neanderthals, didn't really suffer from lower back pain the way we do today. Studies of their skeletal remains show virtually no evidence of the degenerative changes we associate with chronic back problems. You know when that changed? When we invented chairs. Before that, humans squatted, knelt, sat on the ground, and moved constantly throughout the day. The introduction of chair sitting created a biomechanical challenge our bodies were not designed for. The iliopsoas wasn't meant to stay in a shortened position for 8 hours straight. Oh, and by the way, the chair was first created in ancient Egypt, and these early true chairs were crafted as thrones, built for pharaohs and high officials. That prolonged seated posture began shaping how the iliopsoas behaves in modern bodies. So let's say a few words about the problems that can arise when this muscle loses its normal balance. Beyond lower back pain, a tight or dysfunctional iliopsoas can contribute to hip pain, groin pain, and even issues with your sacroiliac joint. Some people develop iliopsoas bursitis, which is inflammation of the fluid-filled sac that cushions the muscle as it passes over the hip joint. Others might experience a snapping hip syndrome where the iliopsoas tendon catches on bony structures, creating a popping or snapping sensation. In severe cases, an iliopsoas abscess can develop, though that's relatively rare and usually related to infection or other underlying conditions. Now, let's talk about when to stretch versus strengthen the iliopsoas. This is important because not everyone needs the same approach. If you are someone who sits a lot and has that typical tight, shortened iliopsoas, stretching is your friend. Exercises like lunges, the couch stretch, or specific thigh massage stretches can help lengthen those tissues. But here's the catch. If you're someone who does a lot of yoga, especially styles that emphasize deep stretches and flexibility, you might already have an overstretched iliopsoas. I've worked with yoga practitioners who have hypermobile hips, and their problem is not tightness but rather instability. For them, stretching the iliopsoas during a Thai massage session would be counterproductive. What supports them far better is focused Thai massage work that builds steadiness through the tissues. Techniques along the same lines help guide the body back to a more organized pattern of movement, while Thai herbal balls provide warmth and compression. Thai acupressure can reinforce that effect by activating points that support pelvic stability and neuromuscular control. When used together, these methods offer a structured way to bring more integrity to the hip region. And speaking of the iliopsoas, I can't resist addressing some of the myths floating around there. You've probably heard people talk about the psoas as the muscle of the soul, yeah? Or claim that releasing it will unlock stored trauma and emotional blockages. Hey, some go even further, suggesting that a tension-free psoas will somehow make you wealthy and spiritually enlightened. Look, I love the psoas, yeah, as much as the next person, but let's be real here. There isn't a specific muscle designed as the soul's residence permit. Your psoas doesn't have a direct hotline to your bank account either. Now, do I think there can be an emotional component to holding tension in the body? Absolutely. The mind and body are connected, and sometimes releasing physical tension can bring up feelings or memories. But the idea that the psoas is somehow more special or mystical than any other muscle is a bit of a stretch, if you'll pardon the pun. It's a wonderful, important muscle that deserves proper care and attention, but we don't need to turn it into something magical to appreciate its significance. The truth is fascinating enough without all this woo-woo overlay. What I hope you're taking away from all this is that the iliopsoas complex is a fundamental player in how your body moves and feels every day. Understanding its anatomy, function, and potential for dysfunction gives you power. Whether you're a massage therapist working with clients or someone dealing with your own body issues, knowledge about the iliopsoas opens up new possibilities for treatment and prevention. Pay attention to how much you sit. Take breaks to stand and stretch. Consider getting body work that addresses this area. And if you're a practitioner, really take the time to assess whether your client needs stretching or strengthening, because that distinction makes all the difference in outcomes. If you want to learn more about working with the iliopsoas and other important muscle groups, I'd love to have you join me for an online massage class. You can also become a member of my YouTube channel to get access to premium content that goes deeper into techniques and applications. And if you're interested in expanding your knowledge even further, check out my books on Amazon under my name, Eleftheria Manzorum. Hey, before I wrap up, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more videos about massage techniques, anatomy, and wellness topics that actually matter for your practice or your personal health journey. I create content that's grounded in real experience and backed by solid understanding of the body. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Be healthy and happy always.